Mother had always taught me to be competitive and assertive. Your elder sister's dress has 2 more peonies embroidered than yours, or your cousin's bird's nest soup has half a bowl more than yours. Her constant fussing gave grandmother splitting headaches at the mere sight of her. Thank you for watching this video. Here is Star-Crossed Love Story. I'm Maggie Liu. Let's dive into today's story. I was naturally of a placid disposition whilst Mother fought and scrambled. I simply picked up whatever advantages fell my way. That is, until Uncle contrived to swap cousin Lin Chuyi's marriage arrangement with mine. That day, I'd merely gone out for tea. Who could have known I'd be knocked unconscious at the Apricot Grove tea house, only to wake dressed in bridal robes, seated in a wedding sedan chair. The Marquis of Ningan's household urgently sought a bride for a joy marriage. Their only legitimate son, Zhang Shaowen, was at death's door. Gongs and drums clamored, wedding music played, yet the supposedly joyous melodies carried an undertone of desolation. In my dazed state, I thought it was someone's funeral procession. I tried to ask the maid beside me, but opening my eyes, I saw nothing but red. I was wearing brand and new bridal robes. The back of my head throbbed painfully, the pain gradually bringing clarity. Memories flooded back like a tide. That day, I'd gone to the Apricot Grove tea house, whose pastries were most favored by the capital's young ladies. Mother had jabbed my forehead, scolding, "With your uncompetitive nature, you'll be abducted sooner or later. Don't come crying to Mother when it happens." Whilst berating me, she'd opened her purse and pressed 5 taels of silver into my hand. "Off you go then. Remember, don't go loitering around men. Xiao Kui, watch your young mistress carefully. If anything goes amiss, you'll answer for it." Mother had fussed and threatened endlessly. Xiao Kui and I exchanged glances, stuck out our tongues, grabbed the silver, and scampered off gleefully. At the Apricot Grove tea house, before I'd tasted tea or sampled pastries, a sudden pain struck the back of my head, and I knew nothing more. I rubbed my still then aching head, barely comprehending the situation, when the sedan chair halted. I tore off the veil and stumbled out. The wedding attendant kept crying, "The bride mustn't alight herself." Never mind all that. I looked up, and the 4 gilt characters Marquis of Ningan's residence nearly blinded me. I murmured those 4 characters under my breath. My vision went black, and I fainted completely. Fae Chapter 2. The bedridden bridegroom Zhang Shaowen lay in bed wearing crimson wedding robes, his face waxen yellow, breathing more out than in, clearly not long for this world. My legs turned to jelly. 2 wedding attendants half-dan dragged, half-dan carried me inside. Both were built like oxen. The Marquis of Ningan had clearly selected them specifically, fearing the bride might flee in terror. Never mind the bride fleeing. This counterfeit, who'd been knocked unconscious and delivered here, wanted to run too. "Oh, cousin, you've done me a terrible wrong." My heart churned with 100 emotions, the predominant one being bitterness. The Lin family had 3 sons, uncle, father, and third uncle. Uncle and third uncle had married daughters from scholarly families. Only Mother came from merchant stock. My maternal grandfather was a silk merchant from Jiangnan, quite wealthy. The other 2 aunts naturally looked down on Mother, yet hadn't the Lin family been living off the silver that leaked through grandfather's fingers all these years? Uncle held a 5th dan rank official position, having only returned to the capital from a provincial posting 2 years ago. In the capital, every position was spoken for. 1 needed silver to grease palms and open doors. When silver ran short, they'd turn to grandfather for loans. Uncle was too embarrassed to borrow directly, so he'd send my foolish father to sign the promissory notes. After father begged his father Dan law and returned, Mother would scold him, and after scolding him, she'd inevitably go pick quarrels with Uncle's wife. Grandmother feared 2 things: Mother making scenes, and grandfather refusing to part with silver. so she invariably sided with mother. Uncle's wife naturally seethed with resentment. Scholars prided themselves on integrity and moral backbone above all else. Yet eating, drinking, and daily necessities all required silver. Uncle's wife wanted to throw tantrums too, but her scholarly upbringing prevented such behavior. However, Uncle's wife had her own source of pride, cousin Lin Chuyi's marriage arrangement. Cousin's betrothed was Jiang Shaoan, the Marquis of Ning'an's only legitimate son. This marquisate wasn't some inherited title. The Marquis of Ning'an had earned it himself, crawling out from heaps of corpses. They said the Marquis had fought his way through, treading on bodies, pushing himself so hard in his youth that he'd damaged something internally. He'd only managed to produce this one heir, Jiang Shaoan, who'd been sickly since childhood. But however sickly, he was still a marquise's legitimate son. Once cousin married in and bore even one child, her position would be secure. Uncle wouldn't need to borrow silver everywhere to facilitate his advancement. Uncle's wife never tired of boasting, "The Marquis's household values are Qiuyi's good breeding." Both her paternal and maternal grandfathers are scholars. The family reputation impeccable. Mother would secretly roll her eyes and mutter, "Such self-aggrandizement." This match only came about because other families feared marrying their daughters off to become living widows, pushing it from one to another until it landed on Qiuyi. But I remembered cousin's wedding date wasn't today. How had I suddenly been knocked unconscious and sent in her place? Hearing a woman's shrill wailing, I finally pieced together the whole sordid affair. Jiang Shaoan had suddenly taken ill. At death's door, the Marquis of Ning'an. That ruthless man cared not whether your family were scholars. His son was dying. Your daughter would marry regardless. Uncle dared not offend the Marquise's household, yet couldn't bear to have his daughter become a widow. So he devised this unconscionable scheme. Knock me unconscious and send me in the wedding sedan. Even if mother wanted to make a fuss, how could a merchant's daughter contend with the powerful and noble? Faye Chapter 3, The Miraculous Effect of Lips and Smacking on Our Wedding Night. I was practically coerced into remaining in the bridal chamber. Jiang Shaoan's face was waxen yellow, his skin dull and sallow, quite unnerving to behold. I wanted to escape, but the two guards at the door had arms thicker than my waist. I could only sit in my wedding robes on a chair, anxiously lost in troubled thoughts. I told the Marquis of Ning'an the truth. I'm not Lin Qiuyi, I'm Lin Qurong. The Marquis had smiled menacingly. I don't care whether you're Yi or Rong. As long as you're from the Lin family, the name matters not. If you can bring joy and help my son recover, I care nothing for such details. But I cared. I hadn't even tasted the tea and pastries at the Apricot Grove Tea House. Perhaps because I'd cried so pitifully, the Marquis had someone help me up and asked, "You need only watch over my son well, and I'll grant you anything you desire." I looked up at him through my tears. His face was cold, murder glinting in his eyes. The words asking him to release me died in my throat. I want to eat the pastries and tea from the Apricot Grove Tea House. And so, in the dead of night, the Marquis sent people to drag the Apricot proprietor from his bed to prepare them fresh. I sat on a chair in the bridal chamber, looking at the still Zan warm pastries before me, and swallowed. The fragrant aroma seemed to suppress my anxiety. I glanced again at the still Zan unconscious Jiang Shaoan, steeled my resolve, and carried the pastry box to sit beside his bed. Whilst noisily smacking my lips and eating, I even told him which flavors were best. If you die, you won't get to taste any of this. In my heart, if one didn't live for eating, what pleasure remained in life? Just as I was happily smacking away, Jiang Shaoan weakly said, "Leave some for me." I nearly died of fright. Every hair standing on end. A cock's crow pierced the firmament, golden light gradually appearing outside. The wedding candles inside had burnt out, leaving 2 pools of red wax tears on the table. A crowd of people surged in, wearing funeral faces, as if all waiting for Zhang Shaoan to draw his last breath. Only I, still shaken, told them, the young Marquise asked me for food. Fei Chapter 4. The Power of Gluttony, when Mother stormed over. The Marquis of Ning'an, completely transformed from his previous man-eating demeanor, kept calling her in-Zan-La, utterly befuddling Mother. The Marchioness, who'd fallen ill from excessive worry, forced herself to rally, warmly pulling Mother close and calling her sister. Mother was gobsmacked, and I was nearly frightened to death, because Zhang Shaoan had been roused by my lips and smacking. "How do you know about so many delicious things?" These were his first words upon waking. He said he'd already felt his soul separating from his body, yet someone kept smacking their lips beside his ear, eating whilst providing commentary, and he'd begun to crave food. Once craving set in, consciousness began returning. He'd struggled to make himself speak because he wanted to taste it too. This, perhaps, was the power of gluttony. Mother was forced to accept that I'd become the Marquis of Ning'an's daughter, Zan in Zan-La, and rolled up her sleeves to go eliminate Uncle and his wife. As for Father, that spineless creature was so frightened by the Marquise's affectionate pats that he nearly burst into tears. The Marchioness sighed. "Churong is pretty as a picture, without a single flaw. Let's hope her temperament doesn't take after her father." Sorry to disappoint. I not only resembled him in appearance, but even more so in character. After Zhang Shaoan awoke, physicians never stopped coming to the residence. Each one would frown after taking his pulse. Truly incredible. The Marquis, having killed too many, had begun believing in karmic retribution and divine providence. He attributed the greatest efficacy to the joy marriage, looking at me as if I were some miraculous elixir. As for Zhang Shaoan, he disagreed with this marriage arrangement. The second young lady was never my betrothed. The Lin family, unwilling to marry their daughter here, yet fearing to offend the Marquise's household, actually knocked the second young lady unconscious and sent her over. Everyone's been considering themselves. But what about the second young lady? His words left everyone silent. My eyes brimmed with tears. I nearly knelt to kowtow to him. A kindred spirit, quickly get up and walk about. Once you're well, perhaps the Marquis will mercifully release me. The Marquis truly doted on this son. After much consideration, feeling I was rather innocent in all this, he waved his hand magnanimously and gave me a cartload of gold, silver, and jewels as compensation, which I hauled home in grand fashion. Before I'd even entered, Uncle's wife, her face covered in blood, was beaten out by Mother. Divide the household. I won't spend another day in this wretched family. Fei Chapter 5. The Broken Engagement Affair. Uncle's machinations left grandmother unable to play deaf and dumb. Though Father and Mother were reluctant to divide the household, Mother was so disgusted by Uncle's family that she insisted on separation regardless. Third Uncle had nothing to say. He was a fence-dan-sitter, following wherever advantage lay. Once the household divided and courtyard sealed off, I'd no longer have to see Cousin's face daily. At least I wouldn't get a headache at the back of my skull every time I saw her. Mother stood in the courtyard brandishing a cleaver, cursing Father and me as 2 spineless wretches. I didn't particularly mind. Scolding was just scolding. It didn't cost me any flesh. Father trembled in fear. He'd failed the imperial examinations for 6 years running. Otherwise, why would grandfather have to give silver to Uncle for nothing? However, this incident had awakened Mother. She must quickly find me a husband's family, lest those petty scoundrels covet my flowered Zan-like, jade Zan-like precious daughter. These words were directed at the wall. presumably making uncle's wife spit blood with rage again. Everyone had assumed Jiang Shaoan was certain to die, yet unexpectedly he'd rallied. Not only rallied, but came in person to break the engagement. On the day of breaking the engagement, Jiang Shaoan, finding walking somewhat uncomfortable, carried a walking stick. Having lain abed so long, unsteady legs were natural. But I'd truly never imagined this sickly fellow was even better looking than father. The waxen yellow had faded, leaving him fair with a rosy glow, hair black as ink, wearing a jeweled studded official's cap, the very picture of nobility. Father had won mother over with his looks back in the day. Already the pinnacle of appearance, Dan-based success in my understanding. I'd never expected Jiang Shaoan to surpass him. With his previous sickly appearance, he seemed even more refined and amiable. Others with walking sticks looked crippled. He with a walking stick looked elegant, seated there. Uncle seemed to shrink 3 measures. Upon learning Jiang Shaoan could walk and move about, cousin fainted from weeping. This affair was unconscionable to begin with. Aunt's word spread. Her reputation in the capital would be ruined. But there was no help for it. What is done was done. Whether one wished to face it or not, face it one must. After the engagement was broken, Jiang Shaoan slowly made his way before me, bending down gently. "Second young lady, I've brought this for you." I looked closely. It was new pastries from the Apricot Grove tea house. My heart bloomed with joy. "Thank you, young Marquis." I happily accepted the pastries and handed them to Xiaokui behind me. Jiang Shaoan's eyes were full of kindness, as if watching a newly hatched chick. "If the second young lady desires anything, you may tell me. I'll do my utmost to procure it." Perhaps he'd spoken casually, and I answered just as casually, "I'd like recipe books." Jiang Shaoan went off to find me recipe books. I promised him that henceforth, whenever I made something delicious, I'd send him a portion too. This, presumably, was the mutual understanding between gluttons. Mother poked my forehead. "He has cooks. What need has he for your food?" But within days, Mother changed her tune. "Wronger, you absolutely must maintain good relations with the young Marquis." The Marquis of Ningen's household had been extraordinarily generous. Grandfather, a merchant his entire life, had for the first time been granted the exceptional status of imperial merchant. The one who'd exerted the most effort in this was the Marquis of Ningen. Thus Mother had leapt to become an imperial merchant's daughter. Anyone wanting to mock her now had to think twice. Fei Chapter 6, bearing false accusations before I'd worked out how to repay Jiang Shaoan. The malicious rumor that the Lin family's second daughter stole her cousin's marriage arrangement grew wings and flew everywhere. I'd become that scheming, calculating vixen who'd seduced her cousin's husband, Zan to Zanbi. Mother wanted to go make a scene at Uncle's house again. Father desperately clutched her waist. "Wife, madam, I beg you, please don't go. If you hack him to death, you'll go to prison. What if I can't bear the loneliness and remarry?" Talk about hitting the snake at its vital point. Mother indeed calmed down. She began chasing father instead. As for me, I resented Uncle's wife for only a moment before turning my thoughts to making food. Could resentment fill one's belly? Clearly not. The immediate task was eating one's fill, growing plump, eating until sleek and glossy. That was more worthwhile. Actually, I understood why Uncle's wife had pulled this stunt. If she didn't thoroughly suppress me, then the matter of cousin's last 10-minute refusal and Uncle knocking me unconscious for the substitution marriage couldn't be concealed. This affair seemed full of holes, yet people loved watching it unfold. Consider which was more compelling: knocked unconscious and forcibly married to a dying man, or vicious younger cousin steals gentle elder cousin's marriage. Definitely the latter. People didn't want facts, they wanted melodrama and gossip. Unfortunately, Uncle hadn't anticipated that this affair disgusted not only our family but also the Marquis of Ningan's household. Their only son had miraculously survived. Never mind whether it was fate after the joy marriage he'd lived. So I was that miraculous elixir. The Marquis of Ningan was not one to suffer in silence. To celebrate his son's recovery from grave illness, and incidentally having broken off an unsuitable engagement, the Marquis's household held a grand banquet. Even I received an invitation. Mother held the invitation, wrinkling her nose at me. "Daughter, will you go?" I was still fussing with lotus stand-shaped pastries, having puzzled over just the lotus shape for ages. At Mother's question, I didn't even look up. Going or not going, either's fine. Mother glared at me, poking a finger through my lotus pastry. "Why shouldn't we go? Let everyone see how beautiful my precious daughter is. Let them die of envy." So on the day of the Marquis of Ningan's banquet, I was dressed up as a mobile gold mountain. From afar, eyes dazzled, up close, hearts palpitated. From every angle, glittering with gold, with two words practically carved on my forehead: wealthy. By comparison, cousin looked withered and gaunt. To maintain her figure, she starved herself 3 times daily. Supposedly talented women couldn't be plump. Viewed from front or back, she was one straight line. Now that households were divided, Uncle's wife could no longer extract jewelry from Mother to maintain appearances. Mother and daughter both looked rather shabby. They'd come to this banquet with gritted teeth just to prove they were in the right without a shred of wrongdoing. Fortunately, I was thick and skinned enough to approach and call out, "Aunt, cousin." The mother and daughter pair smiled rather stiffly. Fortunately, the awkward scene didn't last long. The Marchioness arrived with her entourage. Upon seeing me, she immediately grasped my hand. "Isn't this young lady wrong? How beautiful you look today." I blushed crimson, lowering my head. "Thank you for the Marchioness's kind words." Mother urgently whispered behind me, "You must be modest, say, 'Not at all.'" Seeing Mother practically bouncing 3 feet high, the Marchioness simply called her forward, saying before a crowd of noble ladies, "I adore Sister Land's forthright temperament." After the group of noble ladies exchanged pleasantries, the Marchioness said she'd take us all to watch opera. She immediately ordered the tragedy, The Injustice to Do E, pulling Mother's hand. Sister should understand Do E's grievances best. Though Mother came from merchant stock, she was simultaneously unlearned, with limited education. Seeing the Marchioness bore no ill intent, Mother obediently nodded. "Indeed, I understand her best." Gongs and drums sounded, a woman's mournful voice drifting forth. Growing increasingly confused, I simply couldn't bear listening and stood to wander about. I was fairly familiar with the Marquis of Ningan's residence, having lived here for a time. Seeing me rise, cousin followed. Our contrast was stark. She like autumn's fallen leaves, I like a plump flower bud. "Are you satisfied now?" Lin Chuyi's eyes held resentment. I hadn't the faintest idea what she resented, and quickly said, "Are you ill?" Cousin grew even more resentful, pointing at me. "This is intolerable." Having said this, she quietly walked to the lotus pond's edge, shouted, "Sister, don't push me," and jumped in herself, splash. It was already autumn. The lotus flowers had long withered, leaving only bare stalks standing there. Rather cold, too. That lotus pond had a layer of mud at the bottom. Heaven knows what she was thinking. Water mixed with mud nearly enveloped her completely. Uncle's wife arrived right on cue, prostrating herself on the bank, wailing hearts and rendingly, "My daughter, Lin Chirong? How vicious your heart to push your elder sister into the water." I stood stunned. No, the most wronged person here is me, surely. I didn't do anything. I attempted to explain. but Uncle's wife adopted a "I'm not listening" heartbroken expression. No help for it. I could only push her in to cool off. "Aunt, I merely wanted to tell you, this is pushing someone into water." Cousin jumped in herself. "You are the one I pushed in." Faye Chapter 7. The Lotus Pond farce. Zhang Shaoan's face cramped from suppressing laughter. An accident in one's own lotus pond. As master of the house, he couldn't possibly be unaware, arriving just in time to see me push Uncle's wife into the water. The mother and daughter pair thrashed about, stirring up the mud until the water was foul and turbid. Zhang Shaoan, unflappable in crisis, had someone fetch nets to fish them out. He was handsome and elegant as jade, showing no trace of illness, nothing like the half-dead state cousin had seen when she'd visited him as a patient. Cousin's intestines turned green with regret. Upon reaching shore, she clutched Zhang Shaoan's sleeve. Weeping, "If you must hate someone, hate me. It has nothing to do with my parents." Zhang Shaoan, holding his walking stick in one hand, already somewhat unsteady, staggered when cousin grabbed him thus. I pried her fingers off one by one, saying with distaste, "You absolutely reek right now. Best go wash up first." Cousin fainted from rage. Uncle's wife glared at me hatefully, but she too reeked and could only cover her face and hurry off to wash. Zhang Shaoan took a clean handkerchief and wiped the foul mud from my hands, saying, "Never mind them, you're not much better off yourself. Come, I'll take you to wash up," I said. "Oh," and obediently let him lead me away. He walked ahead somewhat awkwardly, his left leg possibly permanently damaged, appearing to limp. Yet he showed not a trace of self-consciousness or sensitivity, even having leisure to turn and chat with me. "I've collected many recipe books for you. Would you like to come see?" For a glutton, the greatest temptation was food. I quickly washed my hands, wiped off the grease, and trotted after him. Zhang Shaoan was also a glutton. Otherwise, how could he have been roused by craving? His courtyard had little else but cooking implements aplenty, every pot, bowl, ladle, and basin. One could imagine the small kitchen was simmering red bean congee, thick and sweet, the beans broken down completely. One sip in the mouth brought utter contentment. We too held our bowls, drinking while singing each other's praises. He said I knew how to eat. I praised his discernment. Recipe books flew through our hands. Just as we were chatting enthusiastically, a voice came from outside. "Her Highness, the Grand Princess Wanyu has arrived." Grand Princess Wanyu was the late emperor's youngest sister, more than 10 years younger than the current emperor. Actually the sixth daughter, born to the sacred ancestor in his 60s. Though the emperor's aunt by generation, she was practically like a daughter in age. Senior in rank but junior in years, troublesome to manage, Grand Princess Wanyu had never met her father, growing up entirely on the late emperor's knee, later playing daily with her nephew. No one could distinguish whether she was aunt or sister, and her temperament was correspondingly willful and capricious. Her presence today surprised even Zhang Shaoan, given their long separation. He whispered in my ear, "This person has problems. She is convinced herself I'm enamored of her, convinced herself she must marry me. When I fell gravely ill, she fled. Actually, I never promised her anything." I nodded in understanding, thinking, this is wasteland no one wants until someone starts cultivating it. Zhang Shaoan was that wasteland, now cultivated. Grand Princess Wanyu arrived with imposing airs, bringing a crowd of palace maids and eunuchs. Upon entering, she first wept. "Shaoan, you've recovered." Zhang Shaoan leaned close to continue. "In a moment, she'll feign deep affection, claiming how difficult her position, how she fought desperately against the emperor's pressure to see me this once. Shaoan, you don't know. The emperor confined me, forbidding me to visit you again. Today, I barely managed to escape." Zhang Shaoan and I exchanged glances, both understanding the meaning in each other's eyes. If she'd truly escaped, would she have leisure to bring so many palace maids and eunuchs? However, given her exalted status, Zhang Shaoen couldn't be harsh with her. The Grand Princess has worked hard. Grand Princess Wan Yu showed no courtesy, directly attempting to throw herself into his embrace. I've missed you so. Oi, I'm still here. In broad daylight, at least show some restraint. Zhang Shaoen, his legs inconvenient, couldn't dodge. Just as the princess was about to take liberties, I quickly stepped forward, separating the two. Greetings to the Grand Princess. May the Grand Princess be well. Only then did Grand Princess Wan Yu deign to notice me. Who are you? This was rather difficult to explain. Zhang Shaoen tried to speak, but I cut in first. Lin Churong, second daughter of the Lin family. Grand Princess Wan Yu had a foul temper and exalted status. Hearing me speak thus, her riding crop immediately lashed out. You're that vicious younger cousin who stole her elder cousin's marriage. You see, good news never leaves the gate, but bad news travels 1,000 miles. How could Zhang Shaoen let her strike me, injuring someone in his courtyard? Wouldn't that be slapping his face, disregarding his barely recovered health? He swiftly grabbed the princess's whip. A red welt immediately rose on Zhang Shaoen's hand. Enough, Grand Princess. Cease this nonsense. Zhang Shaoen was the Marquis of Ningan's heart's treasure, and the Marquis was the Emperor's heart's treasure. Seeing him injured, Grand Princess Wan Yu panicked, dropping her whip. Shaoen, I didn't mean to. Are you all right? Zhang Shaoen impatiently shook off her hand. I'm fine, Grand Princess. Please return. I shan't see you out. Wan Yu pouted aggrievedly, reluctantly coaxed away by her maids and eunuchs, her departing figure resolute, not even glancing back at him. I was terrified, having been completely unable to react earlier, standing there like a fool. That whip had been half an inch from my face. Had Zhang Shaoen not reacted quickly, I'd likely have been disfigured. I held his hand with trembling fingers. Quickly, fetch a physician. Zhang Shaoen suppressed his anger, resuming his usual gentleness. It is nothing, don't panic. My courtyard has medicinal salve. I'll have a servant bandage it shortly. Mother's in good spirits today. Let's not disturb her. Quite right. The Marquise of Ning'an had swept away all gloom. The Marchioness was jubilant, more delighted than at her son's wedding, flitting about the noble lady's circle like a butterfly. Her son had recovered. The Marquis of Ning'an's household wasn't without heir. How could she not be pleased? She proclaimed this joyfully. Watching the servant expertly apply medicine, Zhang Shaoen explained, when my health was better, I learned horseback riding and archery. Minor injuries were inevitable. I made an sound, wanting to help but fearing I'd be in the way, standing there stupidly like a wooden post, though usually appearing quite amiable. When he'd lost his temper just now, he'd truly shown some of the Marquis of Ning'an's authority. Never mind me, even Grand Princess Wan Yu had been frightened. I asked him anxiously, you won't blame me, will you? His lips curved slightly. Blame you? How could I not? The wound still hurts. My heart tightened, terribly afraid he'd punish me. Trembling, I asked, then, shall I compensate you with silver? Zhang Shaoen's smile deepened. Do I look short of silver? I shook my head. People said the Marquis of Ning'an's residence had floor tiles made of gold. Following the late emperor and current emperor through various campaigns, he'd hauled back no small amount of gold, silver, and jewels. Precious treasures from enemy royal households had also found their way into the Marquis's coffers, so he certainly didn't appear short of silver. However, he added, I'm fond of good food, especially fine pastries and snacks, but they must be sweet without being cloying. Otherwise, they'll affect my recovery. Might the second young lady help me prepare some pastries to satisfy my cravings? I breathed a sigh of relief. Never mind pastries. You could dip me in sauce and eat me if you liked. But the vexing question remained, what pastries were sweet without being cloying? Fae Chapter 8, viewing potential matches when Mother and I returned in our glittering carriage. My mind was full of pastries. Mother ranted beside me about Uncle's wife and cousin, truly unable to grace the banquet table. Watching opera, mother and daughter both fell into the water. What a disgrace. Jiang Shaoan, being kind, told outsiders that Uncle's wife had also fallen into the lotus pond whilst rescuing cousin. He'd extricated me from the affair, sparing my already foul reputation a few more fly specks. With the Marchioness warmly pulling Mother aside to chat, perceptive people could read between the lines. It is just that people in this social stratum wouldn't speak plainly. Having shown their attitude indicated those rumors were false, hoping everyone wouldn't misunderstand. Afterwards, they should carry on as usual. Annyeong, still believing such nonsense, would be a fool. Mother was jubilant, praising the Marchioness as truly a wonderful person. She'd nearly sworn sisterhood and sealed it with blood. I asked Mother, what pastries are sweet without being cloying? Mother rolled her eyes. If you've got something to say, spit it out. Right, I knew it. Asking was pointless. Returning home, Grandmother was in our quarters venting for Uncle's wife. You mother and daughter only care for your own pleasure, disregarding Chunying and Chuyi. How can you be so heartless? She was scolding away merrily. Father obediently took the abuse. Seeing Mother return, one trembled, the other trembled too. Grandmother from fright, Father from joy. Mother asked with narrowed eyes, has Mother come to condemn us? Grandmother changed her tune, laughing awkwardly. Not at all. I merely came to ask what happened. How did Chunying and Chuyi fall into the water? Mother didn't speak. I took up the topic. Elder sister twisted her ankle and fell in. Aunt fell in trying to rescue her. Grandmother certainly didn't believe it. After all, I'd pushed Uncle's wife in. She immediately said caustically, and you just stood there watching your aunt and sister fall in. I grinned with distaste. Grandmother, that is a lotus pond full of foul mud. If I'd gone in, could I have made the pond less foul? Grandmother was stumped. After a few more ineffectual remarks, Mother's single phrase, "Then we shan't keep you for dinner," sent her packing. That evening, Father gazed at Mother with worship whilst shoveling rice. Mother, driven nearly mad by his staring, sent him off to his study to work after dinner. As for me, I began poring through recipe books searching for pastries. Oddly enough, before I developed my pastry, Mother had already found promising prospects for my marriage through her matchmaking efforts. The man was the son of Mother's fellow townswoman, called Zhao Fei. Coincidentally, Mother had known his mother back in the day. After Mother married into the capital, the two had lost contact. Who'd have known that years later, the woman had married a husband who'd passed the imperial examinations, toiled for several years in his posting, earned promotion, and now also arrived in the capital, hoping to pull some strings, either to return home for an official position or remain in the capital. His son having come of age and needing a wife, this presented Mother with an opportunity. Marrying his son wouldn't be bad. At least I know his mother, and his father's an official, certainly better than your father. I had no particular thoughts, just feeling rather awkward about marrying some stranger in such a muddled, dan-headed fashion. Mother said, "What is, you two can meet once on your own. His mother and I won't interfere. That way it won't be awkward, will it?" She was being rather generous. Mother chose a fine, sunny day, using the pretext of taking me out for tea. Upon arrival, she and the other mothers scarpered, leaving me and my maid staring at each other. When Zhao Fei arrived, he too was accompanied by a matron. That matron looked perpetually aggrieved, nearly bald, and upon seeing me, smiled more hideously than if she'd been crying. Zhao Fei was unremarkable. He was tall, somewhat thin, supposedly from studying day and night, quite modest in manner, answering whatever I asked. We conversed reasonably well, with only one point of dissatisfaction. Whenever I mentioned food, he'd frown. No matter what I suggested eating, he'd respond blandly, "Anything's fine," whatever was the most difficult thing in the world. I was full of suppressed irritation, yet couldn't identify its source. Upon parting at the entrance, we encountered Jiang Shaoan. "Second young lady, what brings you here?" I was delighted to meet an acquaintance, immediately casting Zhao Lingfei aside. "Mother brought me for tea." Jiang Shaoan's smile was appropriate, neither overly intimate nor excessively distant. He turned his gaze to Zhao Lingfei. "And this gentleman is?" Only then did I remember to introduce them. My mother's townswoman, Aunt Song's son, Zhao Lingfei. Zhao Lingfei bowed to Jiang Shaoan. "Greetings, young master. I am Zhao Lingfei." Jiang Shaoan inclined his head slightly. "Jiang Shaoan." The three of us still stood there foolishly when Mother and Aunt Song emerged hand in hand. All smiles seeing us, they grinned. "My, looks like you two got on well." Jiang Shaoan's face instantly turned cold on the return journey. Mother kept asking how I found Zhao Lingfei. I pouted. Not particularly impressive, honest, but taciturn, and the matron accompanying him kept coughing. Mother countered. "That is called having proper etiquette. I think he is excellent, refined, and courteous." Mother adored scholars. She'd initially fancied Father, thinking him brilliant at studies. Yet to this day, he hadn't even achieved Jurin status. I didn't trust her judgment. Compared to Zhao Lingfei, whenever I now looked at Jiang Shaoan, I felt a chill. He seemed gloomy, looking at everyone as if they owed him money. Mother rubbed her arms. "Young Marquis Zhang wasn't like this before. Now that he has recovered, why does he seem so peculiar?" So saying, she went off to find Father. I sat at the table, brow furrowed, lost in thought. Before parting, Jiang Shaoan had asked me, "Have you made those pastries yet?" Made what? Mother kept dragging me to view potential matches. Where would I find time to experiment? As for food, Zhao Lingfei had mentioned one thing, Jiangnan's dingsheng cake. I searched through recipe books, finding the pastry section, finally locating the method for dingsheng cake. Dingsheng cake was exquisitely shaped like silver ingots, turned out from molds piece by piece, neither too large nor small. Fitting in one's palm, bright red and rather attractive. I tasted one, not overly sweet, soft, with a bit of chewiness. Having someone else deliver it seemed improper. After consideration, I decided to deliver it personally. Chapter 9, the characters on the tree trunk, the Marchioness seemed quite pleased to see me, detaining me for a chat, asking what I'd been doing at home lately. I looked utterly miserable, speaking truthfully. Mother drags me daily to view potential matches. The Marchioness's smile faltered. She asked how the viewings were going. I honestly shook my head. I don't think much of them, but Mother's pleased. The Marchioness made a meaningful "oh" sound, asking who the other party was and where they hailed from, before finally releasing me to find Jiang Shaoan. Since recovering from illness, Jiang Shaoan's leg seemed permanently damaged, always carrying his walking stick when going out. That stick had nothing distinctive about it. No carvings, no decorative patterns. Yet when he used it, people overlooked his leg problem, as if he'd been born thus, still possessing extraordinary bearing. Mother had whispered to me, "Thank goodness you didn't muddle-din-headedly marry him. Otherwise, you'd have wed a cripple." I found Mother's words helpless. I corrected her. He wasn't born lame. And besides, that word's too harsh. Mother, don't say such things anymore. Mother clicked her tongue and pursed her lips. At this moment, Jiang Shaoan stood before me. His back was turned, without his walking stick, instead throwing flying knives that landed steadily in a tree trunk. Something seemed carved on it. After a servant announced my presence, Zhang Shaoan casually removed whatever was hanging on the trunk and tossed it aside. "What brings you here today?" He wiped his hands, took up his walking stick, and approached me. Zhang Shaoan was tall. Since recovering from illness, he'd gained some weight, no longer appearing so haggard. They said a Taoist had read his fate, declaring his destiny too fortunate. Heaven couldn't bear it. So this life he'd either be plagued by illness or bear some defect. Apparently quite accurate. After his illness healed, his leg became defective, yet miraculously he suffered no more minor ailments. Trading one leg for peace and smooth sailing. Whether fortunate or unfortunate, who could say? I collected myself and presented the dingsheng cake. "There, I've finally fulfilled your request. This is a Jiangnan regional pastry." Zhao Lingfei had mentioned it, and I'd remembered. Returning home, I'd searched through recipes, spending several days before succeeding. I'd even asked Zhao Lingfei to procure the molds for me. Zhang Shaoan made an sound, his throat rolling, gaze suddenly turning sinister. He said, "Zhao Lingfei, you two are quite familiar." My throat went dry. No wonder Mother said he'd changed after recovering. This expression resembled the Marquis of Ning'an when he'd wanted to devour someone. "We're all right, I suppose." He said nothing more, instead leading me indoors. Actually, we weren't that familiar. I'd merely lived in his courtyard for a time. Entering now, I knew my way around, even remembering where cups and bowls were kept. Seeing me casually pour myself tea, as comfortable as entering my own home. Zhang Shaoan's expression suddenly improved somewhat. We'd barely sat down, chairs not yet warm, when the troublemaker arrived again. "Young Marquise, Grand Princess Wan Yu has arrived." Two people constituted an illicit meeting between man and woman. Three people meant complicated relationships upon entering. The Grand Princess immediately spotted me, her eyes poisonous. "Why are you here again? Is young Marquise Zhang very familiar with you?" Zhang Shaoan interrupted her with displeasure. "Does the Grand Princess have business?" Grand Princess Wan Yu softened her expression, gazing at him with tender affection. "I've already told the Emperor to quickly issue an edict for our marriage. For the Emperor, this aunt's marriage is wonderful news." The Grand Princess's status was exalted. Even if the Emperor wished to intervene, he was merely a nephew. Imperial clan members treated her as a mascot. The Emperor had tried punishing her several times without success. Whenever punishment loomed, one person would cry, "Sacred ancestor departed too soon." Another would wail, "Late Emperor left too quickly." The Emperor's head ached, so he simply stopped trying. But for Zhang Shaoan, this was like a thunderbolt from clear skies striking his very skull. In this 3-person Asura field, I felt I should find an excuse to leave. Just as I was about to claim I needed the privy, Zhang Shaoan stepped on my foot under the table. "Does the Grand Princess know I've been sickly since childhood, and now my leg is lame?" Wan Yu looked infatuated. "I don't care." Zhang Shaoan coldly snorted, adding, "Does the Grand Princess know I may be unable to father children?" Wan Yu remained infatuated. "I've no interest in bearing children. If you can't father them, all the better." My face turned green. Good heavens, this was an enormous secret. Would Zhang Shaoan silence me? Zhang Shaoan, disregarding my struggles, kept me pinned there, telling the Grand Princess, "Princess, please return. I still have a guest to receive." Wan Yu finally shifted her gaze from infatuation, looking at me with venom. "She counts as a guest." Shaoan, don't be deceived by that face. The more beautiful a woman, the more dangerous. A woman like this, with such origins, will stop at nothing to climb upward. She is someone who could steal a good marriage from her own cousin. You'd best keep your distance." Zhang Shaoan said impassively, whom I wish to be close to requires no concern from the princess. Please return quickly, evening approaches, and I shan't see you out." Grand Princess Wanyu pointed at me indignantly. "And her? Why does she get to stay?" I thought. "I haven't said a single word. Please don't quarrel over me. I'm innocent. Help." I screamed internally whilst playing dead externally, looking like half a wooden corpse. "She once saved my life, so I must personally escort her home." Muddled and headedly followed Zhang Shaoan into the Marquis of Ning'an's carriage. He brazenly delivered me to my doorstep. This wasn't all, though the Lin family had divided households. It merely meant 3 families separated by 3 walls. Mother wanted to buy a large house elsewhere, but father, that spineless creature, feared people pointing fingers at his back and adamantly refused. Thus this cohabitation arrangement temporarily persisted. I'd barely alighted from the carriage when he followed. Servants and maids constantly came and went at the Lin family entrance. Someone immediately carried the news inside. Under Zhou Muhui, Zhang Shaoan looked frail. "Second young lady, thank you for visiting me today. I thought you were perfectly vigorous just now. Those flying knives were thrown with considerable force. What is happening now? Why this sudden sickliness?" I was terrified, fearing he'd expire at the Lin family entrance. I quickly supported his arm. That arm clearly had bulging muscles. "Young Marquis Zhang, are you all right?" He clutched his chest, claiming tightness, frowned, saying his head ached, and pointed at his leg, complaining of pain. From head to toe, only his backside didn't hurt. I was torn, tentatively suggesting, Shall you come in to rest briefly?" He straightened, looking hesitant. "That wouldn't be quite proper, would it?" I patted my chest, guaranteeing, "It is fine. Just rest a moment. It is not as if you're not going back." Had I known one mustn't speak in absolutes, I'd never have said those words. Fae Chapter 10, collapsing at the Lin residence upon entering the Lin family gates. Grandmother appeared in full regalia, pestering Zhang Shaoan with endless questions. Zhang Shaoan could hardly say, outright, "You old woman are too tiresome." He maintained a proper smile whilst verbally deflecting, revealing not a single extra word, finally unable to endure. His head tilted and he fainted. The Marchioness arrived weeping and departed weeping, because the physician said moving the young Marquis back and forth would harm his health. Now we had trouble. Zhang Shaoan had fallen ill. The same old pattern, coughing blood, then losing consciousness. Seeing this hot potato, grandmother simply retreated to the main house, refusing to show her face. Father, already spineless, now clung weeping to mother's leg, living in constant terror until mother kicked him away. Young Marquis Zhang collapsed at our door. We must care for him wholeheartedly. What is there to fear? He was born with this condition. We didn't infect him. So saying, mother went to direct everyone in their duties. As for Zhang Shaoan, mother also assigned people to attend him. Meanwhile, cousin found a provincial official's son at lightning speed and became engaged, terrified of being dragged off for another joy marriage if she delayed. Supposedly, the Marquis of Ning'an went to the palace to weep, claiming his bitter fate. Only this one heir, now gravely ill again, hoping the emperor would bestow some tonics. The emperor deliberated extensively before rejecting Grand Princess Wanyu's petition to marry down. Wanyu refused to accept this, weeping and wailing as she brought imperial physicians, then obediently returned with those same physicians. The imperial physician took Zhang Shaoan's pulse, shaking his head and frowning, declaring his days numbered. Grand Princess Wanyu panicked immediately. She rambled about affection and fate being impossible, then hurriedly departed, her retreating figure resolute, not even glancing back at him. Hearing the imperial physician's words, desolation flooded my heart. I'd first met him in precisely this near-Zan death state. Whether by luck or something else, after I'd eaten and swallowed audibly before him all night, he'd suddenly awakened. But now even the imperial physician declared him beyond hope. I hid away and wept, crying for his ill fate, crying that I hadn't had time to tell him I'd begun to care for him. My eyes swelled like peaches. Daily I'd move a stool before him and read recipe books aloud. Reading made me hungry. I'd eat whilst telling him, "This dish tastes ordinary, that one's rather good." But this time, no matter how loudly I smacked my lips, he never opened his eyes. I lay against his chest, softly asking, "Jiang Shaoan, when will you wake? Please wake up." The Marquis of Ning'an came personally, bringing his subordinate officers, preparing to carry Jiang Shaoan back to the Marquis's residence. The officers lifted Jiang Shaoan steadily. It shouldn't cause problems. With Jiang Shaoan near death, the Marquis of Ning'an's household posted notices seeking a woman genuinely willing to marry Jiang Shaoan for a joy marriage, stipulating she must marry from true feelings. Not for wealth and glory, once posted. The entire capital was in uproar. Families previously salivating over the position of the Marquis of Ning'an's household's mistress unanimously chose to keep their doors shut. The Marquis met obstacles everywhere, aging several years. He went to the palace seeking Grand Princess Wanyu, but she hid herself, refusing to see him regardless. Mother sighed at home. "I think this time young Marquis Jiang truly won't survive." I cried daily until my eyes shrank several sizes. Mother said, "Who are you mourning? Your grandmother isn't dead yet." I shook my head, my voice hoarse beyond speech. No one knew why I'd come to care for Jiang Shaoan. Perhaps because he'd blocked that whip for me. Perhaps because, like me, he was gluttonous, and we shared common ground. Whenever food was mentioned, we two could converse endlessly. He'd said that previously, with poor health, he couldn't eat this or touch that. Over time, he developed a craving habit, wanting to taste everything he saw. Outsiders thought him fastidious about food, but actually the most gluttonous person was him. Otherwise, how could my lip-dan smacking have roused him? Recalling our few times together, I finally made my decision. "Mother, I want to marry him." Mother's face lit with joy. "Truly you've agreed to marry Zhaoling Fei." I shook my head, then nodded, my gaze resolute. "I want to marry Jiang Shaoan." This time, departing as a bride, Mother wept whilst rolling on the ground. My poor daughter. Everyone turned away, unable to watch this scene because everyone knew. This time I was marrying Jiang Shaoan. Previously, people said young lady wrong stole her cousin's match. I say they were heaven's destined pair all along, exactly. Last time, it was also the second young lady's joy marriage that roused young Marquis Jiang. Some even said the second young lady envied her cousin's good match. Young Marquis Jiang in that sickly state. Who'd envy that? Haven't you seen the Lin family's eldest daughter found someone from another province? Seems there are quite a few twists and turns in this affair. Voices of discussion came endlessly from outside. I listened, clutching my handkerchief, tears falling one by one, spreading into blurred tear stains. Last time marrying him, I'd been so confused I hadn't even seen what the wedding sedan looked like. This time marrying him, everything was before my eyes. I saw it all clearly. If he were healthy and whole, I probably couldn't have married into the Marquis of Ning'an's household. After all, father still held no official position. Someone of my background marrying a young marquis would be reaching above my station. The Marquis's household had high thresholds indeed. Above, there was a grand princess willing to marry down. Below, there was cousin, an official's daughter willing to marry up. Only someone of my status couldn't even touch the Marquis's household's edges. Gongs and drums played all the way to the Marquis's residence. Red lanterns hung at the entrance, yet seemed somewhat desolate. This was a wedding without a groom. The Marquis of Ningan's household said they'd selected someone from the clan with a similar build to Jiang Shaoan as substitute. From beneath my veil, I saw that person's new shoes step by step leading me into the Marquis's residence. Yet my thoughts were, if only Jiang Shaoan could truly come to marry me. How wonderful that would be. First bow to heaven and earth, second bow to parents. I performed the ceremony with a strange man. The Marquis of Ningan forcibly suppressed his grief, his voice trembling as he instructed me to take care henceforth. Supposedly, the Marchioness was too distraught to even speak. Sent into the bridal chamber, that room remained as before. I sat at the bed's edge, as that man substituting for Jiang Shaoan lifted my veil. My heart filled with sorrow, twice married, both times under such circumstances. No joy, only endless grief. My throat blocked, my nose stung, tears instantly rolling down. Then I was dumbstruck. The man before me, smiling broadly, was clearly Jiang Shaoan. I was stunned. Jiang Shaoan urged impatiently, "Wife, time to wash up, time to consummate the marriage." I thought I must be hallucinating. This lively person before me couldn't be a fake Jiang Shaoan. Would the Marquis of Ningan's household, for the sake of face, actually find someone similar to substitute for their own son in consummating the marriage? The surrounding maids and matrons lowered their heads, suppressing laughter. Clearly this had been premeditated. I stared wide zen-eyed, pinching his face, warm, not fake. What is going on? Wasn't it said you were dying? How has this become an actual wedding night? I was planning to be a widow. A wrong Jiang Shaoan. This sickly fellow had been pretending. After his thorough attentions, my legs were weak the next day. 2 maids supported me on either side. Everyone kept their heads lowered, not daring to look at me. Only Jiang Shaoan appeared refreshed, fastening his robes. "If I hadn't used some stratagem, you'd have married someone else," so he'd said. When going to the front hall to greet my parents Dan-in-Zan-La, both their expressions were extraordinarily complex. Upon seeing me, Mother Dan-in-Zan-La couldn't suppress her laughter, pinching her own thigh 3 times before managing to hold it back. Father Dan-in-Zan-La fared no better. Seeing me, his eyes shifted evasively, somewhat guilty of conscience. The Marquis's household's public story was that the joy marriage had miraculous effects. Jiang Shaoan had immediately revived. This nonsense could only deceive outsiders ignorant of the truth. What joy marriage, what grave illness, all fake. Fae Chapter 11. The truth revealed, Jiang Shaoan told me that Grand Princess Wanyu's status was so exalted that ordinary families dared not marry her. Doing so would make them senior in generation to the emperor. So Wanyu had always coveted Jiang Shaoan, yet didn't genuinely care for him. She merely wanted the Jiang family status. Seeing Wanyu truly intended to marry over, the emperor had also contemplated bestowing the marriage. With no alternative, Jiang Shaoan could only devise this rotten scheme, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. First making Wanyu retreat of her own accord, then testing my true feelings. I asked him, what if I'd refused to marry? Jiang Shaoan said with complete confidence, then I'd find another excuse to claim recovery. I'd find a way to marry you eventually. I rolled my eyes, truly not wanting to deal with him. What gentleness, what refinement, all vanished come nightfall. That day, throwing flying knives, the tree had borne Zhao Lingfei's name. He'd experienced jealousy for the first time, wanting to kill his rival, wanting to prevent it all, wanting to cast everything aside for that one person. After Father exposed the truth, he'd realized this was what caring felt like. I rolled about on the bed in fury. You deceived me terribly. Jiang Shaoan sat at the bedside, grasping my hand. I knew you had feelings for me, just didn't dare admit it. I turned away, blushing. Who says so? Then why would you marry someone at death's door? He leaned close, eyes full of mirth. A wrong, you care for me. His words left me flushed and flustered. I simply pulled the quilt over my head. I'm not talking to you anymore. Jiang Shaoan chuckled softly, embracing me through the quilt. All right, I'll stop teasing. A wrong? Thank you for being willing to marry me. His voice was gentle as spring's warm breeze. My heart softened accordingly. Pulling back the quilt, I looked at him. Jiang Shaoan, you mustn't deceive me again. I won't, never again. He nodded seriously. From now on, I'll treat only you well. The corners of my mouth lifted involuntarily, yet I remained stubborn. Who cares about your kindness? You care, he said with certainty. You care most of all. Left speechless, I could only throw a pillow at him. Jiang Shaoan caught the pillow, laughing, pulling me into his embrace. Arang, let's stay together always, tasting all the world's delicacies. All right, nestled in his arms. I gently nodded. This man had known my weakness from the start. He'd used food to rouse himself from near-Zan death, and used food to capture my heart. Faye Chapter 12. Newlywed days, post-Zan wedding life, proved rather leisurely. Though Jiang Shaoan's legs were inconvenient, this didn't prevent him from gallivanting about. He took me to the capital's most famous restaurant, ordering a table full of dishes. This establishment's squirrel Zan-shaped mandarin fish is unparalleled. Try some. He served me food. Eyes full of indulgence. I tasted a bite, indeed crispy outside, tender within, sweet and sour, delicious. Watching me eat happily, Jiang Shaoan smiled too. If you like it, eat more. You eat too. I served him a piece of fish. Aren't you gluttonous as well? Jiang Shaoan accepted and ate it, his gaze so tender it could drip water. With you here, everything tastes good. His words made me blush. I lowered my head, shoveling rice, not daring to look at him. This man, after recovering from illness, had not only regained his health, but developed a honeyed tongue. After the meal, Jiang Shaoan took me to a bookshop, saying he'd buy me recipe books. This record of culinary treasures was written by an imperial chef from the previous dynasty, recording many palace dishes. He opened it to show me. This Sway Garden menu is also excellent. The author was a great talent with considerable research into food. My eyes went straight. Buy them all. Jiang Shaoan laughed. Very well, all of them. With a grand wave, he purchased every book about food in the shop, filling an entire cart, returning to the marquise's residence. I clutched that pile of books, unable to put them down. Jiang Shaoan sat beside me, watching, eyes full of mirth. Arang, if we have a child in future, will they be as gluttonous as you? I froze momentarily, my face instantly flushing crimson. Who wants to bear your children? If not for me, then for whom? Jiang Shaoan raised an eyebrow. Surely not for Zhao Lingfei. I threw a book at him. You're mentioning him again. Jiang Shaoan dodged, laughing. All right, no more. But Arang, you must give me a son. Otherwise my parents will worry themselves to death. I recalled the Marchioness's expectant gaze upon seeing me, feeling rather embarrassed. Then I'll bear one, I said softly. Jiang Shaoan was overjoyed, sweeping me up and spinning. Arang, you're wonderful. He spun me dizzy. I patted his shoulder. Put me down. Only then did Jiang Shaoan set me down, yet didn't release me, instead holding me tightly. Arang, I truly care for you deeply. Nestled in his arms, I said softly, me too. Though this marriage had begun rather absurdly, the ending was exactly what I'd wanted. Faye Chapter 13. Troubles at the natal home. Half a month after the wedding, I returned to my natal home for the customary visit. Upon seeing me, Mother wept. My daughter, you finally returned. Are you well at the Marquise's residence? Has that Jiang Shaoan bullied you? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mother, I'm perfectly fine. Jiang Shaoan treats me very well. Only then did Mother relax, grasping my hand for careful inspection. You've lost weight, certainly not eating well at the Marquise's residence. Me, Mother? I've gained 3 caddies. Mother, then you're exhausted. That Jiang Shaoan must be tormenting you daily. Me, Father sat to one side suppressing laughter. Mother glared at him once, and he immediately sat up straight. Oh yes, your uncle's wife came making trouble again a few days ago. Mother grew angry mentioning this, claiming Tuyi can't adapt to the climate in her new province, wanting us to provide silver for her recuperation. Who knocked you unconscious and sent you for that joy marriage. Now she has the face to demand silver. I frowned. Mother, you didn't give any, did you? Of course not, Mother said proudly. I had Xiao Kui throw her out. Your uncle's wife tried to make a scene, so I said I'd report to the Marquise's residence. She immediately backed down. I breathed easier. That is good then. However, Mother's tone shifted. Your third aunt has come several times saying she wants to see you. I was puzzled. What does third aunt want with me? What else could it be? Mother rolled her eyes. Now that you're the young Marquise's wife, she wants you to help find her son a position. I understood. Third uncle's family had always been fenced and sitters, leaning wherever advantage lay. Mother, don't agree to this, I said. You know perfectly well what third uncle's sons are like. If we actually procure positions for them, heaven knows what chaos they'll cause. Mother nodded. That is what I think too. But your third aunt is thick, tan-skinned. I've deflected several times and she still won't give up. Then make her give up, I said coldly. Mother, just tell her I have no influence at the Marquise's residence and can't help her. Mother nodded approvingly. My daughter is clever indeed. Just then, a commotion arose outside. Xiao Kui rushed in frantically. Madam, disaster! Third, Madam has forced her way in with people. Mother's expression changed. Such audacity. I restrained Mother. Mother, let me see to this. Reaching the front hall, I indeed saw third aunt seated there with her 2 sons. Well, if it isn't the young Marquise's wife. Seeing me, third aunt immediately plastered on a smile. Wronger, third aunt has missed you terribly. I looked at her coolly. Does third aunt have business? Third aunt's smile broadened. Nothing major, just hoping you'll help your 2 cousins. They're not young anymore, can't keep idling at home. Now that you're part of the Marquise's household, finding them positions shouldn't be difficult, should it? Before I could speak, Mother charged out, What positions? You know perfectly well what your sons are like. Just 2 days ago, one lost his backside in debts at the gambling house. Now you want my daughter to clean up after them. Third aunt's expression stiffened. Sister Zan and Zan Law, you can't say that. I'll say exactly that. What can you do about it? Mother stood arms akimbo. When the household divided, you lot were quick enough to kick us when we were down. Now that my daughter's risen in the world, you come seeking connections. Dream on. Third aunt, losing face, stood to leave. Wait, I stopped her. Third aunt, Mother speaks truly. How you all treated us back then. I remember it all. However, for the sake of family ties, I can give you one opportunity. Third aunt's eyes lit. What opportunity? Have your 2 sons work at the Marquise's residence. I said slowly, however, it won't be a good position. Just feeding horses in the stables. If they do well, naturally there'll be opportunities for advancement. If not, don't blame me for showing no mercy. Third aunt's expression changed repeatedly before she finally gritted out, Fine, it is settled then. After they left, Mother looked at me uncomprehendingly. Wronger, what are you? I smiled slightly. Mother, rather than letting them cause trouble outside, better to keep them under our noses. Besides, feeding horses is honest work, better than loafing about outside. Mother had an epiphany. My daughter is clever indeed. Faye Chapter 4. Amusing incidents at the Marquise's residence. Returning to the Marquise's residence. Jiang Shaoan was practicing swordplay in the courtyard. Though his legs were inconvenient, his swordsmanship remained sharp and precise. Sweat slid down his cheeks, glistening in the sunlight. I watched, rather mesmerized. Seen enough? Jiang Shaoan sheathed his sword. Walking over with a smile, I snapped back to awareness, blushing. Who was watching you? Jiang Shaoan laughed, taking a handkerchief to wipe his sweat. A wrong? Was the visit to your natal home smooth? I recounted Third Aunt's affair after listening. Jiang Shaoan nodded. You did right, rather than letting them cause trouble outside. Better under our noses. Though feeding horses is no easy work, how long they'll last remains to be seen. If they can't persist, they can get lost, I said indifferently. I've already given them a chance. Jiang Shaoan affectionately ruffled my hair. My orang grows more capable by the day. I lifted my chin proudly, naturally. Oh yes, Jiang Shaoan suddenly recalled something. I've had people transport a batch of ingredients from Jiangyan. Would you like to see? My eyes brightened. What ingredients? You'll know when you see. Jiang Shaoan kept me in suspense. Reaching the storeroom, I saw a whole room full of ingredients, fresh river delicacies, various seasonings, and some ingredients I'd never encountered before. This is Jiangyan's unique water shield, Jiang Shaoan introduced. This is Taihu Lake's whitebait. I listened with shining eyes, wishing I could rush to the kitchen immediately to display my talents. No rush, Jiang Shaoan smiled. These ingredients are all yours. You can cook whenever you wish. I was so moved I embraced him. Jiang Shaoan, you're so good to me. Jiang Shaoan held me close, placing a kiss on my forehead. Silly girl, you're my wife. If I don't treat you well, whom should I treat well? Nestled in his arms, I felt marrying him in this lifetime was truly the greatest fortune. Faye Chapter 15. The Palace Banquet Incident in the blink of an eye. The Mid-Zan Autumn Festival arrived. The emperor held a banquet in the palace. Naturally, the Marquis of Ning'an's household must attend. This was my first time entering the palace. I felt inevitably nervous. Jiang Shaoan grasped my hand. Don't fear, I'm here. I nodded, taking a deep breath at the palace banquet. Wives and young ladies from various households gathered. As the newly elevated young Marquise's wife, I naturally became the focus of attention. Is this the Lin family's second daughter? Heard she was knocked unconscious and sent for the Joy marriage. Etsuke Te, what luck. A Joy marriage transformed her into the young Marquise's wife. Whispered comments reached my ears. My expression remained unchanged as I sat composed. Just then, Grand Princess Wanyu arrived. Her eyes immediately found me, her expression darkening. Well, if it isn't young Lady Lin, Wanyu said sarcastically. Oh no, I should call you young Marquise's wife now. I rose and curtsied. Greetings to the Grand Princess. Wanyu snorted coldly. No need for courtesy. This princess wants to see how long you remain young Marquise's wife. My heart tightened, though my face showed nothing. Thank you for the Grand Princess's concern. Wronger will certainly assist the young Marquis well. Wanyu was about to say more when the emperor arrived. Everyone rose to pay respects. The palace banquet officially commenced. During the feast, the emperor suddenly asked, Shaoan, I hear your health has recovered. Jiang Shaoan rose to answer, Thank you for your majesty's concern. Your subject's health has largely recovered. The emperor nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. The Marquise of Ning'an has rendered meritorious service to me. Naturally, I must care well for his son. Your subject thanks your majesty for this grace. Jiang Shaoan bowed. The emperor then looked at me. Is this your wife? I quickly rose and curtsied. This commoner woman, Lin Shirong, greets your majesty. The emperor studied me briefly before smiling. Not bad, a good girl, Shaoan. You must treat her well. Your subject respectfully receives the imperial instruction. Jiang Shaoan replied. Wan Yu's face turned iron and gray to one side, yet dared not speak. After the palace banquet ended, I breathed a sigh of relief. Jiang Shaoan grasped my hand. You've worked hard. I shook my head. Not hard at all. As long as I can be with you, I fear nothing. Jiang Shaoan's eyes filled with tenderness. He lowered his head, placing a kiss on my lips. Fey epilogue. 1 year later, I bore Jiang Shaoan a plump, fair son. The Marchioness of Ning'an was so delighted she couldn't close her mouth, clutching her grandson and refusing to release him. Jiang Shaoan looked at our son and me, his eyes brimming with happiness. A wrong. Thank you. He grasped my hand. I smiled. I should be the one thanking you. Thank you for marrying me, making me the happiest woman in the world. Jiang Shaoan pulled me into his embrace. A wrong. We'll be happy always. I leaned against him, watching the bright moon outside the window, my heart full of emotion from being knocked unconscious and sent for a joy marriage to becoming the young Marquise's wife of the Marquise's residence. Though the journey had been arduous, the ending was ultimately perfect. And all of this, I must thank that gluttonous Jiang Shaoan and the equally gluttonous me. We'd been brought together by food and remained together through genuine affection. This, perhaps, was the most beautiful kind of love outside. Moonlight flowed like water. Inside, warmth and harmony reigned, I thought. This was the life I wanted, someone who loved me, a lovable child, and endless delicacies to enjoy. Having reached this point in life, this is a heartwarming tale of food, love, and personal growth. Our heroine, Lin Shirong, transforms from a reluctant substitute bride into a capable lady of the Marquise's manor. Meanwhile, our hero, Jiang Shaoan, evolves from a sickly heir into a man willing to move heaven and earth for love. I do hope you've enjoyed this sweet little romance, and that you'll find your own slice of happiness wherever it may be.